I've just been doing the math on a $300 million ballroom, and it's not making any sense to me. And here's why. So I worked for several years in magazines, and for a big chunk of that time was architecture and design magazines. And so this doesn't make me an architect, but it means that I have spent a fair amount of time with the budgets and the layouts and the square footage of projects. And these were extremely expensive projects, right? These are the kinds of very premium design projects that wind up in architecture magazines, right? And so I can just tell you right now, like getting up into the kinds of expense that it would cost to, in theory, blow $300 million on this building is hard to do. So, so first of all, let's talk about the money, right? So if it's 90,000 square feet, and a $300 million budget, that winds up being about it's $3,333 per square foot, essentially. So more than $3,000 a square foot is an incredible amount of money to spend. Like, in order to get up into that, like I know somebody who's a contractor for the billionaires of Silicon Valley, and he has described to me having to do things like a 10-foot by 10-foot foyer in one guy's Hawaiian mansion, a place literally where you change your shoes. But this guy wanted it to be an all glass structure with no steel, no visible supports of any kind, and a glass spiral staircase in the middle. And the whole thing should be able to open to the weather. And there's like a ridiculous small sculpture that looks like a single like net has been cast over a rock, but it's all carved out of one rock by like little kids or whatever, incredibly expensive. And that was really expensive. That wound up being $10 million for a 10-foot by 10-foot square space. And that's a $100,000 per square foot cost. And so that's the most I've ever heard of ever, right? But to blow, $3,000 a square foot, that's like a hospital building with a lot of expensive equipment and special infrastructure. That's a big university campus building ready for labs and all kinds of fancy stuff and all the HVAC that goes with that. Now, I recognize that this is, the White House, and so I'm sure there has to be all sorts of security systems built in and so forth, but it's really hard to imagine that amount of money being blown on that. So that's the one thing. That's the money. Then there's the square footage. So 90,000 square feet is an incredibly large space. So like a ballroom, which is what this is theoretically going to be, is like 10,000 square feet. And the renderings, that's what it sort of ends up looking like. And we only see renderings. We're not seeing any blueprints. No one's submitted any plans. We're just seeing renderings at this point. So that 10,000 square feet, right? Let's say that's the ballroom. And then another 10,000 feet. Let's be generous and say, another 10,000 for like a reception area, and like, I don't know, let's say they put in like a 10,000 square foot kitchen, which would be the biggest kitchen ever, like ridiculous, right? Something like that. Still, you have 60,000 square feet left over, in theory, on this project. What is that going to be? Like 60,000 square feet is like a warehouse. That's a big office building. 60,000 square feet is a big thing. So I don't know. We've seen all of the corporations kicking in the money for this. We've heard that it's going to be $300 million. I've watched a fair amount of Ozark. I'm sure you have too. And we all know, right, that the best possible way to launder money is in construction costs. So to my mind, I don't know. The square footage and the money make no sense to me.